Hollywood loves its polished legends. The red carpets, the flashbulbs, the carefully packaged tales of charm and camaraderie. But every so often, a crack shows in the glossy surface, and you see something real, not scripted, not rehearsed. For Angie Dickinson, one of the most captivating women ever to grace the silver screen, there was one name that could pull a shadow across her face even decades later: Lee Marvin. She didn't just dislike him. She didn't merely avoid him at industry events. She never forgave him for something that happened between them, a moment that would linger in her memory for the rest of her life. And to understand why it mattered so much, you have to know exactly who Angie Dickinson was, where she came from, and why respect wasn't just a professional courtesy for her. It was everything. Angeline Brown was born on September 30th, 1931, in the small town of Colm, North Dakota. It was the kind of place where winters felt endless, summers smelled like wheat, and neighbors knew your business before you did. Her family wasn't wealthy. They were modest, hard-working people. Her father a newspaper publisher, her mother a homemaker. There were no silver spoons, no Hollywood connections. Angie grew up in a world far removed from the glamour she'd one day command. When she was 10, the Browns packed up their lives and moved to Burbank, California. This was the 1940s wartime America, and Burbank was buzzing with defense jobs, factories, and a growing entertainment industry just over the hill in Hollywood. Angie wasn't chasing stardom then. She was a diligent student, shy in some ways, but sharp and observant. She graduated from Bellarmine Jefferson High School, then enrolled at Glendale Community College before transferring to Immaculate Heart College in Los Angeles, where she studied business. She imagined herself becoming a secretary or perhaps a writer, and then fate stepped in. In 1953, Angie entered and won a local beauty contest. It seemed like a small thing at first, the kind of event you might brag about to friends and then move on from. But the win got her noticed. The prize included TV appearances, and Angie had something that cameras loved: not just beauty, but poise. Television at the time was hungry for fresh faces, and soon she was appearing in small roles on anthology shows like Death Valley Days and the Colgate Comedy Hour. She wasn't yet a household name, but she stood out. Casting directors noticed her natural ease in front of the camera, the intelligence that sparkled behind her eyes. By the mid-1950s, she was landing film roles, smart, confident women who could match wits with any man on screen. And she wasn't about to be typecast as the ornamental sidekick. In 1959, she landed a role that would define her early career: Feathers, opposite John Wayne in Rio Bravo. Feathers wasn't just a pretty face. She was clever, independent, unafraid to challenge the Duke himself. The chemistry between Dickinson and Wayne was electric, and critics took notice. From there, her career gained momentum. In the 1960s, she proved she could handle anything: crime thrillers like The Killers, 1964, slick heist films like Ocean's 11 with Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack, and the brutal neo-noir Point Blank, 1967. But The Killers wasn't just another movie for her. It was the set where she would have an encounter that she would remember, not fondly for the rest of her life. Hollywood in the early 60s was still a rough business. Stunts weren't always choreographed to perfection. Actors, especially men, sometimes pushed scenes further than scripted, either in the name of realism or because they could get away with it. In The Killers, Angie played Sheila Farr, caught in the violent world of hitmen and betrayal. Lee Marvin played Charlie Strom, a tough, intimidating killer. And then came the scene. Marvin's character confronts Sheila and in a burst of rage dangles her out of a window. The cameras rolled. Angie found herself genuinely suspended over the drop, her body half outside, the edge biting into her back. Whether Marvin was method acting or simply leaning into his tough guy persona, Angie felt the danger and the disrespect. Later, she would say plainly, "I never forgave him for it." It wasn't just about fear. It was about boundaries, about knowing when something stops being performance and starts being personal. And Marvin, in her view, had crossed that line. If Hollywood had a sense of irony, this was it. Just 3 years later, she was cast opposite Marvin again, this time in Point Blank, a cold, stylized revenge thriller. Working with someone you don't trust is tricky. Angie was a consummate professional, but the undercurrent between them was real. In one scene, she hit him with a pool cue, not intentionally, but hard enough to make an impression. Marvin, ever the stoic, didn't make a fuss, but the air between them was never warm. When asked about him later, Angie didn't sugarcoat it. He was a tough bastard. She acknowledged he could be a great guy if you dug deep enough, but that emotional distance was his shield. and she never forgot how it felt to be on the other side of it. Marvin was a World War II veteran, wounded in combat, and carried both physical and emotional scars. His on-screen persona, hard drinking, quick to violence, wasn't far from his off-screen reputation. He could be magnetic, even charming, but he had little patience for pleasantries. Angie understood that. She didn't think of him as purely cruel, but she believed respect was non-negotiable, and her experience on The Killers convinced her that Marvin's idea of professionalism left room for intimidation. It's worth remembering the context. Hollywood in the 60s wasn't kind to actresses, especially those who aged out of ingenue roles. Physical beauty was currency, but it came with a constant fight for respect. Scenes that put actresses in danger, physically or emotionally, were brushed off as part of the job. Complaining could mean losing roles, so many stayed quiet. Angie didn't make a public crusade of it, but she also didn't pretend it never happened. That refusal to erase the memory was her quiet act of defiance. Despite the tension with Marvin, Angie thrived. In 1974, she took on the role of Sergeant Pepper Anderson in Policewoman. This wasn't just a hit show, it was groundbreaking. She was the first woman to headline a network police drama, portraying a character who was smart, capable, and entirely in command. The role earned her a Golden Globe and multiple Emmy nominations, and inspired countless women to consider careers in law enforcement. Through the 80s, 90s, and into the 2000s, she continued working, sometimes in big films like Dressed to Kill 1980 and Pay It Forward 2000, sometimes in smaller projects that let her stretch as an actress. Her personal life was as vivid as her career: marriages to Angie Dickinson and later to composer Burt Bacharach, a decades-long on and off romance with Frank Sinatra, and high-profile relationships with Billy Vera and Larry King. Her daughter Leah Nikki Bacharach faced lifelong challenges with autism and tragically took her own life in 2007, a loss that left Angie permanently changed. Despite personal heartbreak, she remained warm in public, gracious with fans, and unapologetic about the choices she made. Some might see the Killers incident as just another Hollywood anecdote, but it's more than that. It's a snapshot of an era, a woman's place within it, and the line between acting and exploitation. Angie didn't dwell on it in every interview, but she also didn't bury it. By keeping that memory alive, she gave it meaning. She reminded people, especially women, that you don't have to forgive someone who disrespected you just because time has passed. Angie Dickinson's story is full of glamour, success, love affairs, and cultural milestones. But the thread that runs through it is her quiet resilience. That day on the Killers set wasn't the end of her career. It wasn't even the defining moment of it, but it was a defining moment for her. It drew a line in the sand, one she never let anyone step over again. She taught us that boundaries matter, that dignity matters, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is remember.